in this area, we want to think about space. Is there enough room for this plant to grow? And now we're fortunate, right? We live in the Central Valley where we see plants and agriculture all around us. So how they decide, if you guys go outside, and how they decide how much space they put between each tree, specifically in our orchards, it's all depending on, is there enough room for that tree to grow, and for it to have enough nutrients in that ground, right? So space is the first one. Guys, let's get focused. Let's start. The second one is light. Light is important specifically for photosynthesis. Now in this class, you don't have to go into the details of photosynthesis, but just know we have to have sufficient enough light so that the plant could grow. We have to have enough water. That's where, again, in the Central Valley, we see, you probably drive around and see billboards or signs about issues over water rights and water in general, water usage in general. So water is a big requirement for plants to grow. If you don't have enough water in a certain area, you're gonna kind of limit what type of plants could grow in that area. Nutrients in that soil is also important, right? So if you have very dry land with not a lot of nutrients, it limits what type of plants could grow in that specific area. And I'll do the last one and I'll let you guys get caught up here. Temperature or suitable temperature, that is a very big factor for determining what type of plants grow in that area. So we live in a Mediterranean climate. Talk a little bit about that as we go on, but because of where we live, it kind of allows a lot of different plants to grow in our environments. Kind of allows a lot of different plants to grow in our environments, and so we're kind of fortunate for that. But as we start looking around the world, not everyone lives in a Mediterranean climate like we do, and so they're limited to what type of plants grow in their environments based on their temperatures. Just waiting on a couple people and then we'll move on.
Ready to go.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, there it is. All right. Now, when we have issues with any of these 5 requirements, there's things that we could do as humans to modify the environment. And so these are the human modifications to those same elements or the same requirements. And so for space, if we don't have enough space to clear or to plant specific plants or crops, we could clear the land 2 ways that this is done. One is simply cutting out whatever's there and kind of clearing it manually, or we could burn the land. Burning is a pretty specific way to clear as much land as possible in a quick way, and it doesn't cost a lot of money other than the water that you use to turn off the fire, right? And then, not for all fires, but one, it's usually a controlled fire, usually done in small, and it's usually done by people that do it all the time. It's not just done by random people, right? So we could clear the land to make room for space for our plants, right? That's one modification humans could do. Another one is we could have artificial lights. So this is done more in so controlled environments. Whereas we could grow plants in this room, but we would need artificial lighting so that the plants receive the proper light to complete the photosynthesis process, right? So we could have artificial lights. In terms of water, we have irrigation systems so that we could move water into areas where there isn't any water, right? We are fortunate enough to, again, we see this around us pretty much every day. What do we have around here that could help us transport water? What do we have around Orange Cove? Not just fields. There's one big long canal. Yeah, we have a long canal that really we don't have any lakes or any rivers right around our city, but that canal brings water from a specific dam so that we could use it for irrigation. From Pine Flat, yeah. Pine Flat Dam. The next one is for nutrients. If the soil is very dry, we could add fertilizers to it, and that helps with the with the process of helping the plant gather nutrients.
Is that like orange peel?
So partly, but there's also specific like biotechnology fertilizers, so they're engineered to help plants. And then the last one, like we mentioned, we need to have suitable temperatures. Well, we could have greenhouses to control the temperatures of an area so that we can help plants grow in different environments. So there is, even though we have requirements to how plants grow, there is ways that humans have modified the environments so that we could grow almost any plant in any environment. Again, it just depends also on the cost, right? So we also got to think about the cost of how much water we're bringing in and how much it's costing us to move it from one place. We could think about the cost for fertilizers. For example, at my house, I have a specific grass that I have to put a lot of fertilizer in because it doesn't grow in this area. So it does cost money. Artificial lights, again, you have to pay for artificial lights or it increases your energy bill. Clearing space would also cost you money. So all these modifications have a price to them, even a greenhouse, right? Being able to run a greenhouse would cost you money. Let's keep going. So in this next one, we're going to look at the climate types. I've already gone ahead and I'm only going to uncover the climate types so you guys fill them in. But these are the climate types and they're linked to what type of plants grow in those climates. So for wheat, barley, livestock, dairy, and cows, this really grows in a cold mid-latitude climate. So specifically wheat and barley, and even dairy farms, we have them more so in a cold and mid-latitude environment. Think about like higher up in the mountain ranges for us, or even in northern central USA. So that's like thinking about the Midwest areas and so on. Around here, because the price to bring in milk from another place costs way too much because we gotta keep it refrigerated. We're gonna go into that specifically. But yeah, there's a reason why we have a lot of dairy farms. We need to have them close.
So the dairy farms like the ones that are like right down the outskirts of
Visalia?
Visalia and the ones by the Lima Mountain?
We used to have one right outside Orange Grove too. My uncle used to. Let's keep going. We'll talk. Warm to mid-latitude climates, like in southern China or southern USA, these are good for growing vegetables, fruits, and rice. And so think about not so much tropical yet, but these are warmer environments, so it gets pretty sunny. You're gonna need a lot of water for these, but you can still grow vegetables, fruits, and rice. Oh, we're gonna watch a video.
Really? I've never
I saw this on We'll watch a couple videos. Let's keep going. Our environment, we call ours a Mediterranean climate, and it's specifically good for things like grapes, olives, and dates. Because it's nice and warm, but we do get enough water for these specific crops.
Raisins.
Yeah, so we have raisins. Let's get focused for those. We also have grasslands. These are specifically good for grazing cattle or grazing sheep. This is more so when it's open field and the animals get to just eat whatever the grasslands have. In our subtropical environments, they're really good for rice, cotton, and tobacco. And then the last one, tropical, and really the biggest difference is the amount of rain that they get. But in the tropical environments, coffee, sugar, tea, cocoa for chocolate, right? And then pineapples specifically grow. So like, for example, can we grow pineapple here in the Central Valley? No, right? It would not survive. It needs to be in a tropical environment. There is some tropical environments in Africa. Why would it not survive? It's not enough humidity in here, and it's mainly because we don't have enough water. Right, let's keep going, guys. So let's get focused. we're almost gonna get to our activity part. So now, just the last couple things, talking about economics in agriculture. When people are deciding, okay, what are we gonna grow in these areas, and we're gonna kind of have some activities with that in the next couple of days, but when we're deciding what are we gonna grow in these areas, a couple things that are considered is one, the cost of land. So how much land, or what's the price of land? Typically, and we're gonna go into more detail on this, but typically, if you're buying land right outside the city, do you guys think it'd be more expensive or less expensive? More, right? Because it's right next to the city, it's right next to the market, right? It's right next to the market. So anything that's getting brought into the market, you don't have to pay as much for transportation. And so yes, expensive land means that the farmer must. Yeah, it's only 3. The farmer must make enough money to be able to pay off the land. And so when you're buying land next to the city, you're gonna wanna grow stuff that could actually pay off the land, right? And so I'll give you guys a couple examples of that. I don't wanna go into too much detail because it's gonna relate to our activity, but for example, what do we see outside of our city right here in Orange Grove? Oranges, specifically from Orange Grove, right? And so there must be at least enough profit in growing oranges right outside of Orange Grove so that it makes sense for them to grow them, right? What we don't see around here, or specifically around lands, are things like nuts. We don't see a lot of fields with nuts like pistachios, so on. And that's because it costs so much money already to grow these crops, and so it makes them not worth putting them right next to the city, and so they put them away from cities. Are pistachios what? Nuts? Yeah. We also have to consider the cost of labor, right? And again, we're very fortunate we live in Orange Grove, so we get to see this almost on a daily basis, right? But fortunate. If the cost of labor is so high, you're gonna also have to consider that when you're deciding what crops you're gonna grow in that land, right? So you have to basically consider, am I gonna be able to pay off all my employees or all my labor plus the land using just this specific crop, right? And for some people or some businesses, they decide, you know what, we could pay it off because there's just that much profit in it. Or others, they have to decide no, and that's usually when we start to see trees get cut down, right? If the field is not bringing in enough profit anymore, especially if it's an older field and it's not even worth the price of the land anymore, or the cost of the labor, then that's when we start to see them cut out all their trees and decide what to do with the land, whether they replant new trees, or sometimes they could sell the land so that they can make a profit from that, right? The last one is also the cost of machinery. You have to consider that. So I'm thinking about like tractors, forklifts, anything that gets used in agriculture. And even though these are very high investments, it saves you money in labor costs. So if the more machinery you have, and this kind of relates to that question in the beginning, could robots ever replace people in the fields? AI. But initially, it would cost farmers a lot of money to buy these machines, but it would save money in labor costs. So just keep that in mind. We're gonna get into that discussion.
Look at it now, they have now bigger machines and stuff to use more out there.
Yeah, so the price has gone up even more, right? Because they're bigger machines.
For what?
For any machinery.
The fuel?
Yeah.
The fuel costs more?
Everything costs more. Last two things, guys, last two. We're not gonna get into politics.
This is it, can we talk about that?
You guys ready? Alright guys, let's maybe one spinning. I just wanna make sure it pops up at the same time. There's so much. So for intensive versus extensive, this is the real part that's gonna be in the activity. So these notes are probably the most important of any. Intensive agriculture, this is referring to when there's a large amount of labor, so that's driving up the cost, or even there's just a large amount of machinery at work, so the cost is gonna be very, very high to produce this type of agriculture in general. So think about it as like a high input in terms of money. These are usually done in smaller plots of land, although they could be big depending on how industrial the farm is. But these are done in smaller plots of land, and the size is gonna be relative. You're gonna see when we watch these videos what I mean by that. This type of agriculture usually happens near the cities. So for example, right, orange fields or orchards, what type of agriculture would it be? It'd be intensive, because we really see these next to cities all the time, specifically where we're at. And so the big thing about this, even though it's costing a lot of money to do this type of agriculture, it's a high yield per acre, meaning you're gonna get a lot of money back per acre of whatever you're doing. So we're gonna look at some of these examples, or rather you guys are gonna look at examples and determine whether it's intensive agriculture, or the second one, extensive, which is basically the opposite. It's low amount of labor or cost, so it's not gonna cost people a lot of money to either hire people, or it's not gonna be a lot of machineries involved. Yeah. And again, the opposite of small plots of land would be what?
Large plots of land.
Large plots of land. So it really is the opposite. Extensive is more so done in like big acres. But this land is usually away from the cities, because again, the further you go away from a city, the cheaper that price is gonna be for that land, right? It's not gonna cost you as much, because it's really away from the market. And then the last thing is per acre, it's a lower yield, meaning you're making less money per acre of whatever you're doing. And we're gonna get into specific examples of this. So this is where our sticky notes are gonna come in. Don't grab them yet.
No.
Don't grab them yet. At the end. After that. Guys, so this is where our sticky notes are gonna come in. So everyone's gonna grab one at a time, and then this is where you're gonna respond to the question. So what that question is, I'm just waiting for everyone to finish up. Okay, so hold on. We're not let's get focused. When we watch a video, you're gonna tell me whether we're looking at some sort of practice of intensive agriculture or if it's extensive agriculture, and then you're also gonna tell me why. So really refer back to your notes as to the why. Now I have the sentence frame, so for each sticky note, you're gonna show me, or you're gonna write this video as an example of blank, because, and then blank, right? Tell me why it's an example of that type of agriculture. Let's start with the first one, so I'm gonna turn the lights off. Yeah, so grab one sticky note. You could already write the sentence frame, but let's watch the video.
Wait, what did we write? Oh.
And guys, I'm not gonna play the audio so that we can just watch. Guys, let me get your attention. Let me get your attention, guys. So, I'm not gonna play the audio so we can just watch visually what type of agriculture are we looking at. Is it intensive or extensive? I need it quiet so that we can watch, guys. I know. What audio? Said you guys have? So what type of agriculture is this? We get to the main part. Oh. That was like the whole video.
Oh, that is cool. Oh.
Sorry, I'll refresh it.
What is it, this one or this
Oh,
one?
well, let's watch this stuff on.
So like, is it?
For me.
Oh.
So again, we're looking for things like, is it a high cost of labor and machinery?
Intensive agriculture.
Let's see Write your answer on the sticky note, whether it's intensive or extensive. Again, you're looking for high cost of labor or machinery. It is rice, yes.
What? Where is it?
So look at the amount of water they have to use. Think about that in terms of the price.
Where's the rice at?
Yeah, in a bit. That's why let's stay focused, guys.
Do they wash
So-
the rice after?
Yes. So they're replanting the plant that they have taken out.
Because they're already gone for it.
Takes 3 months for rice to grow. And that's what the rice is. And so this is how they get the grains. So we'll stop it right there. So again, it is intensive or extensive and why? Intensive or extensive and why?
But it's just low monthly.
That's why there's something like 5 inches.
But it costs a lot for all the machines. Let's get
The office.
All four of them.
Yeah.
Bro, that's the actual meat facility. That's not the actual part of it. There's just, he's just guys looking at the Oxy 16.
See the bear
Because it has horns, the ox.
I was like, it's bear.
She called it a bear.
See, it's like about the word, but it's not. Cattle.
Alright, let's just a quick raise of your sticky note so you don't have to say it. But if you said intensive, raise your sticky note. If you said intensive. No one said it? If you said extensive, raise your sticky note. Everyone else? I did not say
Did it get erased?
that. No.
What?
So let me explain
Did it not
why.
say-
So, hold on. This is, the biggest part to it is, and I'll show you, which is fine, guys.
Then why don't you put it?
We're not looking necessarily at the cost of everything, but you really want to focus on the cost in terms of, is that acre giving us a lot of money? And are we putting a lot of money into it? This is what tricked you guys a little bit. These are not fully universal. Even though we saw big plots of land, it's not always done in big plots of land. The next one you're gonna see, or one of the ones you're gonna see an even larger plot of land. And I'll show you guys. But this is the part that might trick you guys a lot. Focus more on the yield. If it's costing them a lot of money, And if they're making a lot of money from it, you don't know how much it's making. You're supposed to consider how much you're making.
No, I said it in English, like, no, it's wrong. I was like, is that
And then
next?
email to the next one.
Okay, now it's the next one, and then everyone can write.
Alright guys, new sticky note, grab another sticky note. Now we're gonna do cattle grazing. We won't watch the whole video because this one's long. But cattle grazing. Oh. There is no audio. So these are beefing up cows just from grass.
Beefy? Or like feeding them?
Yeah, feeding them just grass. They're cows.
That's why I like. How's their light?
Cows are any color.
Let's keep our comments down, guys. So let's focus on, it's gonna go into some details
What is
right
it
now.
doing?
This one does go into the price a little bit, but we won't focus on that. So look at the land specifically, right? Look at the plots of land.
Wait, why can't we hear the audio?
Most of them are kind of too fast to understand anyways. But look at the plots of land. Look at how much labor is going into this one. So again, look at the plots of land. And this goes on, like you can see it, there's even more land out there. It's big, big fields. And that's why I said the size of the land is relative. Once we see the examples of what's a big plot of land and what's not, then we'll start to get a better idea of that one. Kind of go to,
That's a grass cow?
yeah, so that, all they eat is grass.
Also, they're like, what's it called? Packaging whenever they cut up, it's like.
Yeah, so these are specifically for butchering, so to take them to a butcher and cut up the meat and sell it
So
to
they're gonna die after like a month?
a couple months.
Wait, this guy is telling us how much time
It doesn't, but
Wait, what did they have?
look at the labor, what are the farmers actually doing? Sell them wood.
Have you guys seen those meat?
Alright, and we'll stop it there. Go ahead and write what you guys said. Again, the rest of the video is the same, but a couple key details, right? The size of land, and then how much labor is going into this one.
I didn't keep track.
No, I mean, really, it's just the easiest one.
Okay, but I.
How much
wrote
labor
it
is
down.
going into this one?
Is this expensive?
Yeah.
It's
I wrote it.
Oh.
Everything,
Why?
I feel like I'll pass this in.
Not that there's none on it.
That's exactly
Or how
what I
much does
did.
it cost to run that? In the last one, you see they had to hire people to do a bunch of work. This one,
I think I
they
got
don't
it.
really have to
And they're
hire.
not really getting money.
So they're not making a lot of money,
Yeah, because that's.
but it's all going to one person.
Yeah.
The first thing we did was beers. Wait, can't they like mark up the cows?
They can. No, they're making a lot of money, but
Right up and down the stairs.
there's not a large amount of money that goes into it.
Well, that was gonna be me.
When I go home, I don't know.
Actually, I am still there.
Now you go to the.
Alright guys, raise your sticky note if you said intensive, and then raise it if you said extensive.
I got it.
And so, two of the driving factors there are, how much labor is going into this one? None that we really see, right? There's some stuff they do have to do.
Like put a tile and kill them.
Let me keep your attention. So, some of the things they do have to do, they do have to build fences, but once you build it once, you don't really have to worry about it for a while, right? Guys, let me keep your attention. And then two, they have to worry about tracking and making sure that all their cattle are in one area, but that's, again, they're not having to hire a lot of people outside of it. Whereas when we saw the rice, they're hiring a lot of people to keep up with the demand and increases the cost. We won't do this one, we're just gonna go to the next one. We'll talk about this one a little bit more, on Monday.
Cranberries.
Let's go to coffee. Coffee. So we get to see how coffee is made. And coffee is a berry.
So many.
So healthy. Alright.
It's a berry, it's a peanut berry. Yeah.
I never drink nowadays.
Really short, why would you? Coffee.
Guys, let's get focused. Shh. Guys. Should think about the Lego house, guys. Let's get focused. Pardon me. Just checking if it's ready. Pause it there. Is it intensive or extensive?
I got one. Actually, I got both.
Are you guys ready for the?
Oh, I'm not doing that, bro. Hello, Fernandez? Hello, Fernandez?
I'm not going to dead boys.
He's not fixed that though.
You're gonna go?
Oh, I got Alexis. He's not
Why are you not going?
I'll go there, What time is it? Today?
A lot of people don't do.
Well, you should I did. What time is it though? We're gonna make
But it costs a lot of money. Machine.
But they get a lot ready because there's a lot of.
Everybody's getting.
Let's keep our comments.
Oh, in last class she legit said the prizes.
Alright, looks like most people got it. What was it?
Intensive.
Intensive, right? It's costing them a lot of money to grow coffee, but it's gonna produce a lot of money or yield a lot of money, right? So let's go ahead. We're gonna stop it right there. Go ahead and glue in your notebook.
Are we done for today?
Yeah, we're done for the day. Glue it. Go ahead and glue it into your notebook.
We're done for the
I think
day.
you guys want to go down.
You know, you could keep them on your notebook, or you could throw them away. That just practice. But this is something.